Cents Per Mile, featuring Charles Gracie, Paul Gibson, and Josh Haynes. Everyone knows the trucking industry has issues, but most people are afraid to talk about it.
Someone's got to do it.
With loads of recruiting and marketing experience and backed by the largest driver audience in the world, we deliver carriers the driver perspective, find solutions, and help make sense make sense.
Thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. Josh is still out from the holiday. He is not feeling well, and that is a terrible way to start the new year.
So while Josh is out joshing around, we're going to hold down the fort.
Yep. And, well, I mean, if you want to call it that, or we might just burn it down. We'll see what's up. But yeah, so real quick, the things we always have to say, you can listen to us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music. You can see us on YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. So if you could subscribe, rate, and yeah, that'll help push us out a little bit further and get us a little bit more momentum going into the new year.
You can also check us out at centspermilepodcast.com, where you can suggest a topic to be a guest or even to become a sponsor.
Speaking of sponsors, who's our sponsor today, Charles?
Decker TruckLine. You should check them out at drivedecker.com.
All right. And before we get too far into things, we are going to go ahead and cut to Behind the Desk with Tenstreet.
Drivers and carriers, we'd like to say thank you for making our spirits bright and delivering more than just Christmas gifts this year.
To the carriers and drivers who keep our holidays running smoothly, thank you for all you do.
Santa's sleigh may get all the glory, but let's not forget our real holiday heroes. Thank you, drivers and carriers, for delivering the magic of the season 1 mile at a time.
Here's to a season full of gratitude and safe travel.
Wherever the road takes you.
To all the drivers and carriers we work with every single day, happy holidays from the Tenstreet team.
To all the drivers and carriers who keep our country moving, happy holidays from Tenstreet.
From all of us at Tenstreet, we wish you a joyful and safe holiday season.
Mesilla Valley Transportation, founded by truck drivers for truck drivers. Why choose MVT? Well, it's simple.
I started off as a driver. Now I'm managing routes. With MVT, the sky's the limit.
Balance is key. State-of-the-art equipment, a strong focus on safety, and a family-driven company culture where respect and hard work are at the core. Mesilla Valley Transportation, where we care about you. Join our family today.
All right. Well, we're kicking off the show, and it's a new year, new us, and we're kind of building out some cool stuff for you in 2025. So one of the things we're going to do is kind of just give our takes. We haven't done that in a while, where it's just Paul and I sitting here riffing on topics that are meaningful to us and our opinions. So buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Yep. I guess the first hot take is new year, new me, all of that, right? Yeah. The first, my mortgage was still due.
Some things still stay the same.
Kind of kills the vibe a little bit, but yeah. So,
I'm excited. I'm very optimistic in this year, just because I get to work with a lot of different departments, carriers. I see a lot of different perspectives, and outside of just the optimizations and the automations that people are rolling out, you're also seeing the optimism play into this. It's carried over. We closed out fourth quarter strong, where people were expecting things to slow down. So I look forward to diving into some of these various topics we're going to talk about today and just kind of give our takes and what we see, because we come from different sides in the industry.
I will go ahead and say that I am not super optimistic.
Yeah, I know it still hurts, but it's okay. The rest of us are. And, just focus on the positives.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not focusing on the positives, Paul.
Hey, I'll tell you what, I remember 4 years ago in 2020 when positive wasn't positive. It's kind of the same vibe, but with everything.
No. All right. Here's a positive. We got news, and we have a lot of great topics that were coming to a close last year, and we didn't get to cover them because the holidays, and we were doing the holiday thing. So I wanted to talk about a little bit of those. First one I got up is the court ruled on the Rhode Island can resume the controversial truck-only tolling program. I mean, on December 6th, Rhode Island Attorney General decided that they were going to allow the resumption of the roadworks truck tolls in Rhode Island. This was one of those things where they wanted to fund their infrastructure with the plan passed to toll truckers.
Wait, so hold on. Let's rewind just a minute. Before you told that story, you said, here's a positive. We have news. So is a positive just that news still exists? Because that's not, that is not.
It's not positive that these costs are being passed on to the trucking companies, because everything's passed on to the trucking companies and then carries over to the drivers, and the lack of pay and the lack of benefits and the lack of just, everything. I thought it was kind of cool that people tried to fight back against this. Obviously they lost. So, thanks, Rhode Island. But the ATA came to the front on this. You saw carriers coming to the forefront on this. Everyone started to band together and like, where's the line in the sand? When's enough's enough? Now, obviously they lost this. Thank you, lawmakers and Attorney General Rhode Island for, crapping all over the trucking industry, as you always do. But it was nice to see everyone band together and say enough's enough.
Well, so my question is, since I decided to take the role in this conversation that I did, what that sets a terrible precedence for the new year. It's like, I mean, you do have the ATA jumping in on it saying, hey, this is bad, and organizations that we usually disagree with. And it still happened. So are we going to double down on that this year and just kind of disregard the whole thing?
Well, this has been ongoing a while. So in September of 2022, the judge sided with the truckers on this and thought this was a violation of the Dormant Commerce Clause, which forbids states from passing laws that place undue burdens on interstate commerce. The judge ordered the toll collection to cease within 48 hours of that ruling. The fact that, they brought it back was kind of one of those things where I'm like, can't you let sleeping dogs lie? Like,
nope, it's all about the money.
Well, it is. And speaking of that, leads me into our next story. So a UPS worker filed workers' comp for crashing into a guardrail. What was left out of that filing was that he was under the influence, which so many questions regarding how you thought that was going to play out if I was the driver. But the judge has ruled that the truck driver was ineligible for workers' compensation following their drunken crash all the way back in 2021. The truck driver, Timothy Willis, crashed his UPS semi-truck into the guardrail in Baltimore County, Maryland. Just last week, they ruled that he was ineligible for workers' compensation, despite being initially awarded compensation by Delaware's Industrial Accident Board. Willis was heading back from Delaware, dropped off his semi-truck after the shift where he crashed into the guardrail at 4 a.m. So in December, they decided this person didn't pass a field sobriety test, automatically failed because they refused it, which is the same as failing it. But two blood tests were taken several hours after and they registered at 0.19 several hours later, which is way past the legal limit. And that's several hours later. So imagine where he was when he crashed into the guardrail. During his workers' compensation hearing, the Industrial Accident Board did not consider the blood alcohol tests admissible as they were not properly authenticated. So he was awarded the compensation. Later, they decided hey, that was a voluntary intoxication. While work deviates from the ordinary course of this person's employment, this action did not. So they were revoking his workers' compensation claim, which I think, drivers can't drink while on the job.
Okay, hold on. So 3 things. One, they decided that it was a voluntary intoxication. Are there jobs you can get where it's involuntary? Because I will voluntarily take that job.
Quality control at some of these distilleries.
Yeah. Well, and 2, I mean, yes, that guy's career is probably over. We've talked about it a lot with insurance. The SAP program, it's kind of still been lacking. Hopefully that works better this year. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to go down and you're going down, why would you not shoot your shot and try to get some money? And thirdly, if I were treated like drivers have been treated more recently, I'd probably be drinking too.
I think this was an important one because it sets a precedent, and they actually made a quote on this. Their quote was, "Finally, to affirm the board's decision, this would set a dangerous precedent if it went otherwise, that employees can get away with driving impaired on the job and say, hey, it was a light beer, despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary." I mean, this is a dangerous precedent. If you could go out and get drunk on the job and then collect workers' comp for the damage that you caused with your bad decision, then what's to stop that? Where's the line?
I mean, I guess what's kind of breaking my brain is that was a conversation. Like, I guess I just can't, it's hard to, I feel like maybe the opinion is just too obvious that, like, yes, because yeah, no, for sure. Like, I mean, if I thought that, like, oh, I'm gonna go do this thing for work, that's fine. But if I get drunk and do it and I crash, I can actually make more money for doing nothing after that for a while. I could get a vacation by getting drunk and ramming my car into a guardrail.
That it goes to my point where FAFO is either a choice or a lifestyle, depending on which side of it you want to be on. I think it was important that they took the stance they did. Otherwise, it's all going to hell in a handbasket real quick.
Kind of more faster.
More so. Paul, new year, optimism.
Yeah, woke up in the same place.
Trucking's going to be great again this year.
Oh, my God.
No, seriously, though, it leads into, all the things we've talked about. If you look at all the different topics that we talked about in 2024 and in past seasons, we've covered everything from health to regulations to the freight recession to driver rights. There's a lot of things that, because of the structure of the show, we kind of touch upon them. But I was really looking forward to you and I doing what we do best and having a conversation with our different perspectives on these individual topics. Are you down for that?
For sure. Whoa, did you just talk to me like I'm a guest? I kind of like that.
Hey, anything's possible in 2025.
On today's show, we have me. CDLLife has the largest, most engaged driver audience in the world and is the #1 platform for driver-facing news, entertainment, and community. With millions of monthly page views on our news site, a social reach of over 71 million, and over 600,000 app downloads, it all adds up to 1 billion driver touchpoints a year. If your company is looking for drivers, you just found them.
We had everyone else share their predictions for this year on the close of last year. What's yours?
The same. Not the same as theirs, but just the same. Or worse.
I'm going to start calling you Eeyore.
That's fine. I talk way too fast for that. No, so it's not, I'm not a pessimist by any means. I am absolutely 100% a realist. So like in the election episode, we talked about how a lot of the optimism is theoretical. But a lot of that optimism is based on campaign promises. But there's also a lot of things that have gone on post the election, like the conversation about tariffs, and he's doubled down and said, like, hey, yeah, no, this might not be great for a lot of people for a long while. And I don't think a lot of people are in position to have that reset. So that's going to cause a lot of turmoil. On top of that, I guarantee you there's going to be other things that are put in place that are going to cause civil unrest, which then affects truck drivers, much like a lot of the stuff in 2020 did. Regardless how you felt about things, there was a lot of disruption. And so I from a realist perspective, I struggle to see it. And I mean, it's not like Congress is going to come in and save everybody and start legislating like with a bunch of pro or negative driver bills. And it's because it's going to be so divided that it's all going to get lost again. And so for me personally, I do have low expectations, same thing with the freight market. It's one of those things where it's been, like, oh, well, this is the bottom. Oh, well, no, this is the bottom. oh, well, it's going up a little bit, but then it's going to level out still down here at the bottom. Oh, it's going to do the thing. It's going to do the thing. Second quarter of 2023. Oh, it's going to do the thing. First quarter of 2024. Oh, it's not going to do it till like third quarter 2024. Here we are, first quarter 2025. What?
When you look at a lot of the people that were making those predictions, a lot of the people don't have a crystal ball. And there were so many nuances that happened in the time period of that. You had the election, that was one that was looming over it. No one knew what anything was going to do until that came into play. And even with that, you have the administration that's already set kind of expectations like, hey, nothing happens overnight. Like, things have to take time. There's no light switch or reset button. We even had past guests that say, hey, you know, there's a delay from the time things are enacted to the time we see them. So according to our friend Nick, that we were at that time in Obama's era of seeing those effects of their policy changes. I do think that it is important to note, though, that optimism plays a huge role. I think people underestimate how much that optimism plays a role. People were very conservative with the past administration, and we saw Q4, at least from my perspective. And I work from the marketing to the recruiting side of things, so I get to see where people are putting their pieces on the board, maneuvering their money in anticipation for their growth. We saw a mass amount of people moving all their chips to the side of investing back into growth. We saw accounts that typically, slow down their marketing budgets in December, increase them, sign long-term deals, preparing for that growth. So that is one of those things that I think is going to play a major factor in what we see for the remainder of this year. Obviously, there's curveballs. It's trucking. It's a roller coaster. Things are going to go up. Things are going to go down. The tariffs, it's too soon to tell how those are going to impact everything. But it's not like anyone's going to have an overnight warehouse pop-up build-up that's going to start manufacturing things.
I think my deal with that is so I agree. And, I work in the same space. I saw it too. Fourth quarter, that election happened. People were just like, I've been holding on to this for a minute, and that's fine. And I love the enthusiasm, obviously, because, it's great to see business moving. But I don't really see anything that's going to be a factor to change things. At least anytime soon, like you were talking about the delay. I don't see anything there that's going to change anything anytime soon.
No, I think, and I've said it all along, you're going to see stair steps. It's not going to be no big pendulum swing. You're going to see small increases just because things are opening up.
You're going to see it. You're going to see it get worse before it gets better. That's what I'm saying. Things are, that's all I'm saying is things, being a realist, we can have all the optimism we want, but things are going to actually go probably down.
I think, and I still hold true to what I said when we were recapping the year. I still think, based on everything I'm seeing, that you're going to see those stair steps, and you're going to start to see them mid to end of second quarter,
just like freight, right? In 2023.
You know what it is these companies, they're getting these contracts right now. They're bidding on them. Some of them have closed them at the end of the fourth quarter. That's going to drive certain things. So we already see it in marketing spends. We see it in recruiting spends. I'd like to imagine that these people aren't hiring a whole bunch of people for expansion that they don't have capacity to support.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing with that is I get your stair step stuff. What I don't like is your timeline. I think that is super optimistic. I would love to be wrong. God, I hope I'm wrong. But I bet you I would see it more like we're going to do this again next year, the first week of 2026. And I'm going to be like, I think things are actually at the bottom and they are going to start stepping up because this is about to come into play. But for this year, nope.
All right. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Driver shortages.
I still stand by my hot take that I made earlier this year that there is no driver shortage. But I think we are building one. You got old people leaving. You got new people not coming in. Nothing's happening with pay. Nothing is creating a better environment except for, pay isn't going up with cost of living. There's other jobs that exist that can get you home every day, remote jobs that pay more. And yeah, like things are only getting tougher out on the road. There's only going to be more regulations. Nobody's like, as much as, the new administration talks about pulling things back. We've had 4 years of it and they didn't pull any of that back really. Not anything that would actually help drivers.
I'm just hoping that the Department of Governmental Efficiency looks at the FMCSA and like, hey, we don't need so much regulation.
I mean, that would make sense, especially, by the time we're recording this, I don't know if Elon's still in there, but if he is, man, yeah, dude, if he can cut corners and make the Cybertruck like even more wonky, I'm sure he'd go for it.
Well, let's talk about that. One of the things that was a hot topic in 2024 was the automation of trucking, both in the office and behind the wheel. And I have my views on this. As a former driver, I think we are long off from seeing that become a thing where you're not going to need drivers. They have found ways to move freight long distance, but as soon as it hits a city, then it's being swapped out with a real driver. You have talks of remote control, having drivers sitting at a desk doing the driving. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Just with technology and, the cybersecurity threats that are out there, I'd hate to see what happens when you hijack a 80,000 pound vehicle at 60 to 70 miles an hour. I think there's a lot of risk in that I haven't seen enough validation that has been addressed. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, yes and no. I think automation is a ways off, but not for the same reasons. I think the technology is pretty close. So especially AI, like, because a lot of that is similar. You think about it with AI, right now we're looking at generated videos with AI and we're saying, oh, the eyes look pretty, uncanny valley. Right. A year ago, we were like, why is that guy got like 10 fingers? That's where we've come. Like that technology is going to advance so quickly, just like the lane assist now that you can have in your car. I don't recommend this. This was for scientific purposes only. I'm a professional. My car has like the lane assist, right? But it's the one that will keep you in the lane.
Bounces you like a ping pong ball between the lanes.
Well, I tried it at about 80 miles an hour around a curb, full roller coaster just to see what would happen. There was nobody else on the road and it was, there was 3 lanes I had some play. My hands were hovering.
Full disclaimer, Paul is not giving professional driving advice right now.
It did the turn. Right? So regardless of whether that was irresponsible or not, I'm not a commercial driver, so it's fine. Safety people can, I did it. It's done. But it did the turn. So I don't think that part of it is a problem. I think that'll be here sooner than we think. My issue, I think, is when people talk autonomous trucks, they usually look at they associate that with EVs. And looking at the battery life of a lot of those trucks and the runs they're doing, you can't really scale that because, last time I checked, I think like a fully loaded truck could make it like 350 miles or something like that.
Yeah, well, you just look at it from a four-wheeler's perspective. The amount of infrastructure that supports the electric vehicles there's not enough. How many times you pull into a mall parking lot and they got those charging stations and they're full and you got people waiting to charge up their vehicle and then the time it takes to do it.
Well, how many times do you pull into a truck stop and there's just not a spot?
Exactly.
Let alone a spot with an EV charger.
This is true. So I just don't think it's there. I don't think it's sustainable. I think if you're a city driver or a local company, you could possibly look into this and support the move for, electric trucks. If you're looking to kind of bridge the gap so drivers can get home more frequently by doing over the road automation. I think you're going to see that come into play first, but someone's still going to have to pick up and deliver it. Automation hasn't come that far yet.
Well, and this is another hot take, pretty hot one. And I might be stretching it a little bit, but I mean, Biden put in the CHIPS Act, right, to build the chips here, to not deal with the shortage that we had in 2020 with all the manufacturing. Well, that's not really fully in place yet. And if we end up in a trade war because of all the tariffs, if that happens, well, where do 60% of our chips come from? You know, so it's like that's going to potentially be a problem. And if you're going to struggle to possibly manufacture in general, the last thing you're going to be able to do is manufacture on that level, because that's going to require even more.
Well, I'm glad you went down that road, because a lot of these things are to force people to make stuff in America. Well, with that, we're already experiencing, if you go off the ATA, driver shortage. I think it's a shortage of people wanting to work for peanuts and people that want to do a job that doesn't pay well. What happens when you have all these jobs open up in America that pay better, and now the trucking industry is faced with trying to become more competitive? They're going to have to go down this path at some point. Like at some point, someone has to look down, in the words of Robert Pearson, say, "My baby's ugly. How do you make trucking sexy again?" Well, it's going to start with the pay. It's going to start with the life.